Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. Outside the temple in the stone spell formation, the nascent soul cultivators were waiting anxiously for the disciples to emerge. Suddenly, beams of light descended from above, within which were the disciples of all the sects. Without a single exception, the disciples all had black turtle marks on them, either on their faces or on other parts of their bodies. The nascent soul cultivators from the three sects couldn't stop their eyes from widening at the sight. Frigid Sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind instantly had a very bad feeling. All of you. Before any of the nascent soul Taoist masters from the three sects could inquire into the matter, another beam of light shot up from one of the enormous stones in the spell formation. Then, Bai Xiaochun appeared. The instant he was fully materialized, he shot at top speed toward the patriarchs of the River-Defying sect. "They're trying to kill me," he shouted as he neared. "Save me, patriarchs. I almost lost my poor little life. They want me dead." Even as the words left his mouth, the other disciples atop the enormous stones devolved into madness. Disregarding the fact that they were in the presence of members of the older generation, they all shot toward Bai Xiaochun. "I'm gonna kill you, Bai Xiaochun." Rumbling sounds echoed out as the nearly 100 cultivators who had just returned all launched attacks. All of the nascent soul cultivators were completely taken aback. As for Frigid Sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind, their expressions turned very grim. Considering that all these people wanted to kill Bai Xiaochun, they could only imagine what dangers he must have been facing just now inside the legacy zone. "Humph," Crimson Soul said, taking a step forward and stomping his foot onto the ground. A massive shockwave spread out in all directions, sending the cultivators of the three sects tumbling off their feet. "Bai Xiaochun is the junior patriarch of the River-Defying sect. Which of you dares try to kill him?" These cultivators were all chosen, but they were still just in the core formation stage, and couldn't possibly compete with Crimson Soul. The fearsome aura emanating out from him now caused them all to tremble inwardly. Even as Bai Xiaochun cowered behind Crimson Soul, Frigid Sect, and Master Godwind, he felt very moved, and couldn't help but muse that all the dangers he had faced in the legacy zone were worth it. Frigid Sect's eyes glittered, and his expression was grim as he looked over at the nascent soul cultivators from the other sects and said, "Tao River Court. Polarity River Court. Starry River Court. You three had better give us a good explanation for this." Master Godwind stepped over to Bai Xiaochun and put his hand on his shoulder, using his cultivation base to scan Bai Xiaochun for injuries. At first, he seemed surprised, but then he gave Bai Xiaochun a look that no one else noticed. Bai Xiaochun instantly understood his intention. Forcing his face to look even paler than before, he let out a wail, then bit his tongue and coughed up some blood. Placing his hand onto his chest, he began to pant for breath. Pointing at the cultivators of the three sects, he said, "They're so vicious. They tried to kill me. I just..." When the other cultivators saw this, the fury they had been suppressing raged even higher than before. They had all seen how tough Bai Xiaochun was with their own eyes. Furthermore, he had been as quick as a six-legged rabbit, which had made him very difficult to hit in the first place. And yet here he was claiming to be seriously injured. "Bai Xiaochun, you..." Although several people began to shout in rage, before they could say more than a word or two, the white-haired old man from the Tao River Court grimly shouted, "Shut up, all of you." His thunderous voice instantly crushed down on everyone, causing the disciples' hearts to tremble. Averting their gazes, they quickly went silent. "The Tao River Court will provide an explanation within 1 month's time. Fellow Taoists from the River-Defying sect, I hope you will take some time to consider the matter we discussed earlier, and provide an answer as soon as possible." Looking over at Bai Xiaochun, he forced a smile onto his face, then left along with the other Tao River Court cultivators. As for all of the turtle marks on the disciples, he completely ignored them. As the Tao River Court cultivators were leaving, the group from the Polarity River Court offered some similar words about providing an explanation, then left. Last was the Starry River Court. As for the expression on the face of the red-haired old man, it couldn't have been more unsightly. Glaring at the disciples of his sect, he was just about to turn and leave when Master Godwind suddenly said, "Fellow Taoist, I expect that starry meteor to be delivered within the month." Without even looking back, the red-haired old man said, "I wouldn't go back on my word for a paltry starry meteor." With that, he gave a cold harumph and left with his disciples. In the silence which followed afterward, Frigid Sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind looked over at Bai Xiaochun with incredulity written on their faces. Bai Xiaochun continued to clutch at his chest. Complexion ashen, he looked piteously over at the three patriarchs. Patriarchs, you have no idea how miserable I was in there. If things had gone on for even a moment longer, it would have been the end of me. You would have needed to pick a new junior patriarch for the River-Defying sect. The three patriarchs weren't sure whether to laugh or cry. After a moment, Crimson Soul said, "How did you pull it off, huh? Oh, well, even I'm not sure. They wanted to kill me almost as soon as they saw me. It was really bewildering. I'm talking about the legacy seals." "Oh, the legacy seals. Look, I don't want to brag, but as soon as I went inside, the legacy seals acted as if I were their master or something. They just kept rushing toward me. I didn't even need to go after them. It was a real headache." Bai Xiaochun's braggadocio caused the three patriarchs to simply stand there staring at him. Unsure of the situation, he cautiously probed, "So, did we win? I got all the legacy seals, and I even got this thing called the Living Mountain Incantation." Frigid Sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind all exchanged glances, and then suddenly burst out laughing. The truth was, they didn't care how Bai Xiaochun had managed to get all of the legacy seals. However he did it, he was the junior patriarch of the River-Defying sect, and they were all on the same team. "You didn't just win, you won big." Master Godwind laughed heartily. Relieved, Bai Xiaochun also started laughing, feeling prouder of himself than ever. "Alright, let's get back to the sect," Frigid Sect said excitedly, his eyes shining with approval of Bai Xiaochun. With that, he swept Bai Xiaochun up into the air toward the Heavenhorn sword. On the way back to the River-Defying sect, the patriarchs told Bai Xiaochun about everything which had happened outside. It was almost unbelievable. They had acquired 100% of the resources, which meant that all of the other three sects had to take the shares they'd acquired in the last competition and send them to the River-Defying sect. There was nothing they could do to complain about the matter. After all, the rules had been established by the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect at the request of the three sects themselves. In addition to all that, the River-Defying sect was also to get a starry meteor. Because of all of that, the River-Defying sect's overall power would continue to grow stronger. As of now, they were in a good position whether they wanted to act aggressively or be more defensive. Furthermore, because of the situation with the resources, there would be more interactions with the Dao and Polarity River Courts. In the negotiations which would eventually come regarding the redistribution of resources, they could not only make the other two sects happy, but probably get better benefits for themselves. Most importantly of all, because of the heaven-shaking, earth-toppling events which had just occurred, the River-Defying sect was now much closer to having a Diva Realm Patriarch. They had enough resources, and enough information. It wouldn't be long before Crimson Soul, Frigid Sect, and Master Godwind all had their chance to become Devas. With the solid foundation they were establishing, the River-Defying sect was finally in a position to have a true base of power in the middle reaches. Bai Xiaochun wasn't interested or skilled in politics or scheming, so as far as he was concerned, the dealings with the other three sects were best left in the hands of the wily foxes Frigid Sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind. In terms of what the patriarchs wanted him to focus on, they made it clear right away. Matters between all the sects aren't really important. What you need to do now is work on understanding the Living Mountain Incantation. It's one of the 300 secret legacy magics in the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect. If you can master the Living Mountain Incantation, your battle prowess will increase to a shocking level. Bai Xiaochun immediately began to meditate upon the Living Mountain Incantation. However, as he contemplated the technique, he realized that it came with some very harsh requirements in terms of cultivation. Furthermore, it needed to be cultivated in a special environment. Based on the description that came along with the technique, that environment could only be found in a land of mountains within the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect itself. Bai Xiaochun was a little depressed about that, but knew that there was nothing he could do about it now. Even as he let the matter drop, he realized that they were nearing the sect headquarters. There, the Blood Ancestor towered over the lands, and the aura of the dire Skybanyan suppressed everything in the area. The four mountain ranges stretched out like dragons. That was the River-Defying sect. Bai Xiaochun hadn't been gone very long, and furthermore, everyone had been aware of the purpose behind his departure. As such, the entire sect had been quietly awaiting his return, and wondering what had occurred. Although everyone had been prepared for the worst, no one had been able to keep from wondering what it would be like if Bai Xiaochun managed to pull off a miracle. Actually, the patriarchs had already sent word back to the sect about the result. Everyone knew that the River-Defying sect had acquired 100% of the resources, that the other three sects had been crushed, and that Bai Xiaochun had single-handedly driven countless chosen crazy. Therefore, as soon as Bai Xiaochun returned, the entire sect erupted into wild cheering that shook the heavens. Elder brother Bai, you're incredible. The junior patriarch smashed the starry river court and trampled the polarity river court. He's unparalleled under heaven. Bai Xiaochun had just stepped off of the heaven-horn sword, and when he heard all of the cheering, he was instantly enlivened. Reaching over excitedly to tug at Frigid Sect's sleeve, he said, "They're talking about me." Frigid Sect cleared his throat but didn't say anything. Pulling his sleeve out of Bai Xiaochun's grasp, he headed back toward Mount River-Defying with Master Godwind and Crimson Soul. Bai Xiaochun flew out into the air, filled with excitement at the sight of all the disciples in the sect cheering at him. After only a moment of thought, he realized that now was not the time to look icy and cold. Trying to appear as affable as possible, he cleared his throat and headed to the most crowded area he could find. Over the course of the following days, Bai Xiaochun spared no effort in spreading different versions of the stories of his accomplishments in the Legacy Zone. However, in each version, he was always incredibly heroic and mighty, and single-handedly crushed his opponents. Bai Xiaochun could clearly tell how much the disciples in the sect adored him. In fact, there was one occasion when he merely smiled at one of the female disciples, and she literally fainted from excitement. As of this moment, Bai Xiaochun felt as if the whole world were beaming at him with approval. Even the sun seemed to be grinning. Bruiser was also the subject of much acclaim, and immediately went to show off to some of the female beasts he spent time with. Half a month went by before things finally started to calm down. After thinking about everything that had happened in the Legacy Zone, Bai Xiaochun was more concerned than ever about his cultivation base. "I need to get stronger," he thought. With that, he somberly went into secluded meditation to cultivate the Frigid School will evolving incantation and his undying tendons. The Frigid School will evolving incantation was a very profound technique indeed. Before, his cultivation of it had mostly consisted of him fumbling around in the dark. He had even been forced to ask some questions of Frigid Sect before being able to wrap his mind around it. Use the technique to form the Frigid, then use the Frigid to evolve the will. Closing his eyes, he did as the mnemonic described, taking a drop of the Heavenspan River water that he had absorbed and transforming it into a power of frigid coldness. Gradually, frigid chi began to build up around him, until frost appeared on the walls of his immortals' cave. At the same time, his body began to get colder and colder. A few more days went by, and finally, he opened his eyes. Deep within, a profound gleam could be seen. As of this moment, Bai Xiaochun was convinced that he had grasped the quintessence of the Frigid School will evolving incantation. First form the Frigid, then evolve the will. Frigid. He slowly lifted his right hand and looked at his fingers, the tips of which were covered with white frost. "I don't have enough frigid chi." According to the description in the Frigid School will evolving incantation, people who manipulate frigid chi are divided into 4 levels. Frigid acolytes, frigid adepts, frigid masters, and frigid paragons. Frigid acolytes can summon frigid chi and use it to freeze objects within a small area. Frigid adepts can freeze everything in a 3,000-meter area, and frigid masters can create a frigid land 30,000 meters across. Furthermore, those frigid domains can also be used to create clone projections. As for frigid paragons, they can even freeze portions of the Heavenspan River. Bai Xiaochun's eyes shone with a strange light as he contemplated what it would be like to freeze part of the Heavenspan River. Even freezing just a small portion would be an act of power that would leave everyone in awe. Right now, I don't even count as a frigid acolyte. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath. He knew that this wasn't a matter that could be rushed. The only thing he could do was slowly absorb Heavenspan River water and accumulate frigid chi. The frigid chi would build up inside of his Heaven Dao gold core, and once the 9 spiritual seas that made up the core were completely transformed into frigid chi, it would indicate that he was at the peak of the gold core stage. "I wonder how many years that will take," he thought, shaking his head. However, he didn't feel anxious. After all, he currently had more than 1,000 years of longevity to work with. Therefore, he focused on his undying tendons. By this point, he could progress from his big toe to his second toe. Other than his cultivation, he also had the River-Defying pill to worry about. Although he now felt comfortable with the concoction process, he still hadn't been able to come up with a way to solve the life force problem. Although absorbing some of the chi and blood of the true spirit had improved his confidence, after some tests, he found he still couldn't succeed. Most importantly, he still couldn't come up with enough life force from the Heavenspan River water. "It must have something to do with my cultivation base. I'm just not strong enough to extract the boundless life force from the Heavenspan River." He shook his head. For now, worrying about the concocting part wasn't even worth it. He needed to figure out how to get the life force he needed. As his train of thought progressed, he looked down at his bag of holding and recalled the idea he'd come up with before going to the legacy zone. The root of the entire problem was that he needed life force, and he had long since determined where he would get it. The little turtle. The undying, indestructible qualities of the little turtle ensured that it had plenty of life force. However, the problem was that the little turtle would definitely not cooperate willingly. That was why Bai Xiaochun had begun to secretly plan how to concoct a certain type of spirit medicine. He wanted to make a high-level medicine that would knock the little turtle out. Although it sounded like a simple enough task, it wasn't. He would only have one chance to succeed. If he somehow tricked the little turtle into taking that medicine, and it worked, then all would be well. But if the medicine didn't work, then he could only imagine what lengths the feisty turtle would go to in his attempt to get revenge. What a headache, he thought, sighing. After some time passed, he gritted his teeth and continued on with the concocting effort in the same way he had been before. Thankfully, the three sects were supposed to visit soon to deliver the resources they owed, which would surely include a large number of legendary spirit medicines. After some thought, Bai Xiaochun decided that he should definitely go study some of them. As Bai Xiaochun went about his cultivation and medicine concocting, the cultivation world of the Middle Reaches was astir. Although the three sects had done everything they could to suppress news of what had occurred in the Legacy Zone, it was virtually impossible to sweep such a momentous event under the rug. Before long, everyone in the Middle Reaches had heard about it, and everyone was thoroughly shaken. Furthermore, when everyone heard that the task had been accomplished by Junior Patriarch Bai Xiaochun alone, and that not only he had been up against dozens of top core formation chosen, but he had also left a special mark on all of them, it led to a complete uproar. And that was before people heard about the Living Mountain incantation. By that point, people were starting to look into his background, and soon, the details about his life began to spread. He had joined the Spirit Stream sect as a teenager, and had fought a bitter battle against the Luokan clan in which he risked his own life to defend his fellow disciples. He took first place in the chosen battles in his sect, and was also an eccentric genius when it came to concocting medicine. Later, he infiltrated the Bloodstream sect, and became both a blood master and their blood ancestor. He alone had prevented a war between the Spirit Stream sect and the Bloodstream sect, and even convinced the two sects to join forces. Then they absorbed the Profound and Pillstream sects. In the end, he became the junior patriarch of the newly formed River-Defying sect. Any one of the many things he had accomplished would be shocking, let alone all of them together. It didn't take long for Bai Xiaochun's fame to spread throughout all of the cultivation world of the Middle Reaches. Of course, the River-Defying sect controlled the information that leaked out about him. They had no desire for the world as a whole to learn his true nature. That was kept secret. One matter that led to gasps throughout the Middle Reaches was that all of the core formation chosen who had entered the Legacy Zone had ended up with turtle marks on their bodies and faces. They were very strange marks that would shine brightly at night, and could not be covered up, even with thick clothing or magical shields. It was a shocking matter, and no matter how the three sects attempted to erase the marks, they couldn't. The combined efforts of numerous nascent soul cultivators proved useless, to the point where the Diva Patriarchs of the sects got involved. Shockingly, not even the Diva Patriarchs could do anything about the marks. In the end, the entire cultivation world was stunned by the matter. As for the core formation cultivators who had been affected, the matter left them filled with sorrow but unable to weep. Furthermore, they now hated Bai Xiaochun more than ever. Most of them went into secluded meditation and refused to come out into the open. To them, being branded with that turtle mark was like a fate worse than death. Because of the terrifying nature of Bai Xiaochun's turtle mark, countless people were terrified, and resolved to never, ever provoke him. As the entire cultivation world was talking about Bai Xiaochun, something else happened. The Tao, Polarity, and Starry River courts all took time to come visit the River-Defying sect. During the negotiations, the River-Defying sect didn't refuse to compromise with the Tao River Court and the Polarity River Court. In the end, they reached an agreement whereby which those two courts only handed over some of their resources. Because of that, not only did those courts come to understand the River-Defying sect a bit better, they also developed their relationship in a good direction. After all, there had never been any hate between them, only an instinctual aversion to newcomers. After everything that had happened, such aversion was much reduced. However, when it came to the Starry River Court, the River-Defying sect didn't back down at all. They knew that they had to put on a good show for everyone paying attention to the situation. If they let the Starry River Court off the hook, then it would be entirely possible for more situations like that which had occurred with the resource redistribution to arise in the future. The River-Defying sect had the upper hand, and the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect had set forth rules governing the situation. The Starry River Court had no other choice than to comply, and hand over all of their resources, plus the Starry Meteorite. Of course, because of that, the two sects came to view each other as enemies. The Dao and Polarity River Courts were more than happy to see such a development. After all, their patriarchs were also wily old foxes, and were well aware that the River-Defying sect was merely asserting itself as a newly arrived sect who had fought its way up from the lower reaches. Not only did they not fear conflict, they were also willing to work peacefully with the Dao and Polarity River Courts. Naturally, those two courts were fine with such an arrangement. There were many schemes and plots involved with the overall situation, and none of that was of much interest to Bai Xiaochun. Almost as soon as the sect received all of the resources, he went over to look through the medicinal plants. Generally speaking, not a single request by Bai Xiaochun would ever be denied in the River-Defying sect, so before long, Bai Xiaochun had a whole collection of spirit plants in hand. He found all of the plants he remembered reading about, including some types of virtually extinct immortal grasses that he was confident would work well in a knockout medicine. Next, he went straight into secluded meditation. During the concocting process, he did something fairly unusual. He intentionally gave voice to words which were completely different than what he was actually thinking. It was all for the goal of knocking out the little turtle. The concocting process lasted for a month. Afterward, rumbling sounds filled the immortal's cave, and to Bai Xiaochun's excitement, 2 fingernail-sized white medicinal pills appeared. It was impossible to tell the quality of the pills, but a mere whiff of their aroma would cause all of the pores on a person's body to suddenly open up as if they were about to receive an incredible replenishment of energy. Anyone would think that it was an uncharacteristically high-level medicine. That was because Bai Xiaochun had created a surface layer for the pill made from a very expensive medicinal plant. Based on the luster and sheen of the pill, it was clearly the type of amazing pill that would cause anyone to drool with desire. Of course, it was only Bai Xiaochun's meticulous selection of various spirit plants that led to the color of the pill. What was impossible to tell by looking at the pill was that on the inside, it contained the knockout medicine that Bai Xiaochun had conceptualized only after intense and prolonged effort. After looking at the resulting spirit medicine, Bai Xiaochun couldn't help but take a deep breath. Expression flickering with excitement, he pondered how to get the little turtle to consume it. Just asking him to consume it wouldn't work. Furthermore, he needed to prevent potential retaliation on the part of the little turtle. After some thought, his eyes sparkled and he murmured, "This spirit medicine is incredibly valuable. Very, very rare in the world. Based on the aroma, it's obviously a spectacular delicacy. I don't think I can bring myself to consume it now. I can only eat it in a critical moment, a moment when all of the extinct immortal grasses I used could be considered worth it. Only then could I possibly eat these 2 consummate spirit medicines." Panting, he carefully put the 2 spirit medicines into a small bottle, then sealed it and put it into his bag of holding. After some thought, he seemed to still be worried about them, and quickly took them out again. After opening the bottle to ensure that the pills were still there, he tucked the bottle into the fold of his robe. Then he went to take a short walk. Only afterwards did he seem to be convinced that they were safe. After gritting his teeth, he sealed the bottle again and then put it into his bag of holding. During the following few days, he took the bottle out constantly to check the number of pills inside. At first, he checked after the amount of time it took an incense stick to burn. Then he checked every 2 hours. Then he checked every few days. Eventually, he settled on a duration of 4 hours. Every 4 hours, he would check on his pills as if they were precious treasures. Finally, a look of deep satisfaction appeared on his face. "HMMMPH, he thought. "Ah, little turtle, I've definitely piqued your curiosity. When the time comes." That was what he was thinking every time he checked on the pills. Another 10 days passed. Then, in the afternoon, Bai Xiaochun opened his bag of holding and was instantly shaken to the core. The pill bottle only had 1 pill in it. Bai Xiaochun quickly suppressed his excitement, worried that the little turtle might notice. Plastering a look of shock onto his face, he rifled through his bag of holding, and after finding nothing, opened his third eye, which he powered with the full strength of his Heaven Dao gold core. Violet light spilled out, illuminating the entire immortal's cave. Finally, after much searching, he managed to find a crease in the corner of the bag of holding, where he saw the little turtle. The reason bags of holding could hold so many items was that they created small, unique dimensions. Such dimensions often contained cracks and fissures that weren't visible to the naked eye. Although he had examined this particular crack before, he had never found anything unusual in it. But now, he just so happened to have found the little turtle. The little turtle was already unconscious, his head lolled to the side and his limbs stuck out, unmoving. Bai Xiaochun chuckled. He knew that the only reason he had been able to spot the turtle was because he was unconscious. Were it not for that, the crafty little thing would still have been able to evade him, heavenspan dharma I or not. After cautiously taking the little turtle out of his bag of holding, a snapping sound rang out, and it returned to its previous state. After shaking him, his head and limbs began to smack against his shell, producing distinctive knocking sounds. Thrilled, Bai Xiaochun threw his head back and laughed uproariously. Then he began to exact his revenge, shaking the little turtle as hard as he could. Who said you could curse me, huh? Who said you could piss off that big crocodile, huh? Who said you could provoke that toad, huh? You got me injured and even got people to try to kill me. He angrily shook the little turtle, causing knocking sounds to ring out in the immortals' cave. Before long, the turtle began to emit the fragrance which Bai Xiaochun found so familiar. Bai Xiaochun's excitement instantly grew, and he couldn't help but think back with a sigh to how things had been before. Worried that the little turtle might wake up, he quickly produced a pill furnace and threw the little turtle inside. Then he poured in a large quantity of heavenspan river water. Settling his chi and clearing his mind, he set about concocting a river-defying pill. Time was limited, he had no idea when the little turtle might wake up. Worried about the prospect of revenge, he went about the concocting even faster than usual. Thankfully, he had reviewed the formula for the river-defying pill hundreds if not thousands of times, and was completely familiar with the process. As soon as the pill furnace heated up, he performed a double-handed incantation gesture and got to work. 3 days later, the entire pill furnace was glowing bright red. Then, the pill furnace burst open, and the little turtle flew out and flopped onto the ground. At the same time, a virtually transparent medicinal pill appeared, which apparently possessed some level of intelligence, as it immediately attempted to flee. As soon as the medicinal pill appeared, the sky above the river-defying sect began to dim, and a huge wind kicked up. The nascent soul cultivator's expressions flickered as, in almost the exact same instant, tribulation lightning formed up above. A bolt of lightning appeared, and before anyone could do anything, it slammed down onto Bai Xiaochun's immortal's cave, causing it to burst open. Bai Xiaochun quickly tossed the little turtle into his bag of holding and then opened his heavenspan dharma eye. After locating the semi-translucent medicinal pill, he immediately began to chase after it. By this point, all of the river-defying sect's nascent soul cultivators were flying out into the open. Although they weren't sure exactly what was happening, they knew that any event which provoked tribulation lightning was no light matter. Patriarchs, Bai Xiaochun shouted anxiously. Quick, set up a spell formation. I concocted a river-defying pill and it's alive. It's trying to get away. In response, Frigid Sect shivered, and his eyes went wide. With a roar, he unleashed his cultivation base, causing intense pressure to fill the entire area. Even the old monkey appeared, shooting toward the pill with speed that far surpassed Bai Xiaochun. Thanks to the cooperation of several of the patriarchs, the fleeing medicinal pill was eventually apprehended by the old monkey. As for the tribulation lightning, the nascent soul cultivators handled it easily. The old monkey excitedly held the pill up toward his nose and inhaled. A 3 breaths version, he said. That's fine too. Even a 3 breaths version will be useful. The old monkey gave Bai Xiaochun a deep look that contained both approval and gratitude. Then he flashed into motion, disappearing with the medicinal pill. Bai Xiaochun was a bit disappointed. He had concocted that medicinal pill, only to have it taken away by someone else. Just when he was about to go look for Patriarch Frigid Sect to complain, suddenly, an incredible pressure weighed down from above. This wasn't pressure from tribulation lightning, and it caused everything in the entire area to tremble. All cultivators of the river-defying sect felt themselves shaking as if heavenly might were descending. Then, a bemused voice echoed out in all directions. How amusing. My first visit to your river-defying sect, and I run into some pill tribulation. A boy appeared up above, wearing a long red robe. As he strode forth, the pressure that felt like heavenly might grew even more intense. Ripples even appeared on the surface of the Heavenspan River, and the plants and vegetation in all 4 mountain ranges of the river-defying sect bent over as if they were bowing in obeisance. If even the plants and vegetation were affected, it almost wasn't necessary to mention the cultivators. Frigid Sect and the other patriarchs hesitated for only a moment. As soon as they saw that boy, expressions of dread rose on their faces. Even the dire Skybanyan was trembling. Ah Diva, Frigid Sect said, trembling. He exchanged a glance with Crimson Soul and Master Godwind. They had heard about this boy. In the vast eastern cultivation world, there was only one Diva realm expert who maintained the physical appearance of a child. He was one of the 5 Diva realm experts of the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect, Li Yuanshan. Frigid sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind immediately clasped hands in formal greeting and said, "Greetings, Senior Li." The other nascent soul cultivators were shaken, and quickly followed suit. Bai Xiaochun was standing off to the side, and immediately started to get nervous. This was his first time seeing a diva, and from the heaven-like pressure weighing down from him, it made it seem like the whole world was being crushed. Heart-pounding, he didn't even dare to look at him directly. He couldn't help but marvel at how this boy, despite not being tall as Bai Xiaochun himself, was so incredible. The boy looked at Bai Xiaochun with an enigmatic smile, but didn't say anything to him. Then he waved his sleeve. "Frigid sect, the 3 of you lead the way to your grand hall. I have an important message for you." Frigid sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind looked very somber as they voiced their assent and then respectfully led the way. The nascent soul cultivators followed along with serious expressions on their faces. The entire River-Defying sect fell into silence, and many people started to get nervous, wondering why the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect might have sent a diva. Bai Xiaochun's nervousness was mounting. For some reason, he got the feeling from the way the boy had looked at him that something strange was going on. After returning to his immortals cave, he began to repair the damage done by the bolt of lightning, frequently looking over his shoulder at the summit of the mountain. Suddenly, he thought of something, and opened his bag of holding to check to see if the little turtle was still asleep. Upon finding that he was, he put him back in the place where he'd found him. That way, he murmured to himself, even if he suspects something happened after he wakes up, I can just pretend I don't know what he's talking about. Although he was pleased with himself for how he'd handled the situation, he couldn't help but feel nervous about the arrival of the boy, and once again looked up in the direction of the Grand Hall. In that very moment, the boy like Li Yuanshan was sitting down in the seat of honor in the Grand Hall on Mount River-Defiance. Frigid sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind stood respectfully off to the side, while the other nascent soul cultivators waited outside. "It seems I'm connected by destiny to your River-Defying sect," the boy said coolly. "I was the one who slaughtered the majority of the Sky River court before your arrival." Frigid sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind were shaken by those words. "That's why I was the one selected to come here today, to tell you about another of the rules in the Middle Reaches cultivation world. Every so often, all of the 4 great sects that exist downriver of the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect must send an important disciple or 2 upriver to be political hostages. 1. The practice of exchanging political hostages goes way back into Chinese history all the way to the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 220 CE. I'm here to take your hostages back with me to the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect." The boy looked at Frigid sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind, whose expressions flickered with surprise as they looked up at him. Hostages? Although this was Frigid sect's first time hearing of the arrangement, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. After all, the 4 great sects of the Middle Reaches were important parts of the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect, and were essentially like feudal vassals. Master Godwind took a deep breath and said, "We'll definitely pick our hostage candidates as quickly as possible." He was well aware that when a diva came with a request, it wasn't something they could refuse. "You don't need to do anything," the boy said calmly. "I've already made the decision for you. The main hostage will be Bai Xiaochun." The hearts of the 3 patriarchs began to pound. With that, the boy sent some divine sense sweeping out into the rest of the River-Defying sect. With the exception of the location where the true spirit was resting, which was a place he didn't wish to disturb, the rest of the sect was like an open book to him, although apparently, he didn't notice the monkey. There's something special about that girl." A strange light flickered in the boy's eyes, and he waved his hand, causing the image of a young woman to appear, seated cross-legged in meditation. That girl was none other than Gongsun Wan'er. "She's going to be the other hostage. Go ahead and notify them, and also explain that they can take no more than 5 fellow disciples of your sect to act as their Tao protectors. The entire group will come with me to the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect to continue their cultivation." The 3 patriarchs were grumbling inwardly. The truth was, they didn't care much about Gongsun Wan'er. Although she had respectable latent talent and potential, what they really cared about was Bai Xiaochun. Master Godwind hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Senior." Before Master Godwind could finish speaking, the boy's eyes turned cold and he interrupted, "Planning to refuse?" Instantly, Master Godwind turned extremely cold, almost as if he were being frozen. He couldn't even speak a word. Frigid sect quickly offered further explanation. "Senior, there's something you might not be aware of. Although Bai Xiaochun is our junior patriarch, the truth is that he's extremely naughty and mischievous, and definitely not the ideal candidate for a hostage. Senior, I'm just worried that he might cause problems for your honored sect. That's absolutely right, Senior, Crimson Soul said with a smile. He was also aware of how important Bai Xiaochun was to the River-Defying sect. Bai Xiaochun isn't just naughty and mischievous, he loves concocting medicine. The downside to that is that he always causes huge problems, creating plagues and harming everyone in the area. Not even chickens or dogs can escape his tribulations. If he goes to the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect, I'm afraid he really might cause a big catastrophe. None of those things will be problems, the boy responded. The majestic Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect controls all of the eastern reaches, and leads the cultivation world on behalf of the Heavenspan Sea. Do you really think we can't handle one core formation cultivator? Even if he were more naughty and mischievous than he is now, even if he caused worse disasters, do you really think he would bring the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect to its knees? He likes concocting medicine? Well, in the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect, we have the best pill furnaces, the best medicinal plants, and the best concocting facilities. Whatever problems he has with concocting medicine, they can be solved there. Fear not. Bai Xiaochun might be a hostage, but at the same time, he will be a disciple of the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect. Very well, the matter is settled, and there will be no more discussion. Go. In 3 days, I will take your disciples back to the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect. Clearly, the boy would brook no further argument. Waving his hand, he sent out a gentle light that carried Frigid Sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind out of the Grand Hall, after which the door slammed shut with a bang. Outside the hall, Frigid Sect, Crimson Soul and Master Godwind looked at each other with grim expressions. Unfortunately, there was nothing they could do in this situation. Master Godwind sighed and said, well, we don't have much time. It won't be difficult to explain the matter to the girl, but as for Bai Xiaochun, Brother Frigid Sect, why don't you go talk to him first? We can go later to offer more explanations. We also need to think about which disciples to send with him as Dao protectors. Of course, Master Godwind was very worried about the whole thing. Bai Xiaochun was the blood ancestor, and if mishaps occurred after he left, the bloodstream division would be at a serious disadvantage. Well, at least he can take Dao protectors, right? Crimson Soul said through gritted teeth. Even though he can only take people from his generation, they'll at least be of some help. Whoever he wants to go with him will have no choice in the matter. I'll explain everything to them. Frigid Sect sighed. Frowning, he headed toward Bai Xiaochun's Immortals cave, where he found the restless and antsy Bai Xiaochun, and then explained the situation to him. Bai Xiaochun's jaw dropped, and he stared at Frigid Sect, his mind spinning. Hostage? In the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect, he had read about political hostages in the ancient records, and knew that they always suffered all sorts of tragic and grievous fates. He was especially worried about going alone. Being all by himself in a strange sect didn't seem safe at all. The River-Defying sect was great. He had an incredibly high standing, lots of female disciples liked him, and people offered formal greetings to him wherever he went. The mere thought of going to the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect caused his vision to grow dim. Yelping, he lurched forward and grabbed onto Frigid Sect's leg. Patriarch, I don't want to go, he wailed, I'll miss you all too much. This is my home. Don't make me go. I just made a heroic contribution to the sect. I'm the junior patriarch. For years now, I've always been ready to stand up for the sect during hard times. I saved my fellow disciples from the Luokan clan, I made a name for myself in the Fallen Sword Abyss, I went undercover in the Bloodstream sect. But my biggest contributions have been to the River-Defying sect. Patriarch, I don't want to go. I can't stand to part with all of you. I'll miss my fellow disciples. Don't make me go, please. Have Shangguan Tianyu go instead. He'd be a great choice. He's heroic and confident and super handsome. Heaven and earth would weep if he doesn't become the hostage. Or how about Song Ke? The Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect doesn't have somebody like him, do they? So send him. Or what about Beihan Lai or Nine Isles? They would be great choices. If not, then how about Chen Manyao? Send her. Frigid Sect felt a headache coming on. Sighing, he looked down at Bai Xiaochun and softly said, Xiaochun, if I had any choice in the matter, I definitely wouldn't make you go. A tremor ran through Bai Xiaochun, and he looked up at Frigid Sect, looking like he was about to cry. I really have to go? Frigid Sect tousled Bai Xiaochun's hair. A kind look appeared in his eye as he said, yes, you do. However, you can take some Dao protectors with you. Also, it won't be for very long. You'll be back here at home before you know it. Bai Xiaochun felt as if his heart were withering. Looking up again at Frigid Sect to make sure he wasn't pulling a prank, he finally exclaimed, why did you make me so outstanding, oh heavens? I can't believe that even the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect can't do without me. Moments ago, Frigid sect had been feeling sad, but after hearing Bai Xiaochun's words, he could do nothing but cough dryly. Now that he thought about it, in some ways, sending Bai Xiaochun to the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect wasn't that bad of a choice after all. You leave in 3 days, he said. Take this command medallion. It gives you the authority to select any Tao protectors from your current generation to accompany you. With that, he handed Bai Xiaochun the command medallion and then turned to leave. Before walking out the door, he added one final reminder. You can select, at most, 5 Tao protectors. The Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect won't allow any more than that. Bai Xiaochun stood amidst the ruins of his immortals cave, watching Frigid sect leave. Then he slumped down, somewhat in a daze. After wrestling with his thoughts for an hour, he watched the sun rise and then finally sighed. Whatever. Since the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect wishes for me to come, then I guess I'll go check things out. Although he was still a bit depressed, the idea of being able to select his own Tao protectors was an exciting thought. I'm not going to take Bruiser with me, he murmured. The Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect is too much of a strange and dangerous place. So, Tao protectors, who should I pick? I'm going to be in a strange place, so I'll definitely need someone good at digging up information. With that, he began to think about everyone he knew. They'll need to be quick-witted and good at making discreet inquiries. I need someone who will be able to find out about everything in the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect, and quickly at that. I'll need to know all the rumors. It will definitely require a pure genius. Suddenly, he slapped his thigh, and his eyes began to shine. Shu Baosai. Back in the Spirit Stream sect, Shu Baosai had always been adept at rooting out information. He knew who all the top beauties in the sect were, and how they were ranked. Bai Xiaochun also remembered how, whenever Shu Baosai got some new information, he would make a record of it in his little notebook. He prefers to handwrite things instead of using jade slips. Only a person completely dedicated to his work would do that. Yeah, nobody would be fit for this position other than Shu Baosai. Chuckling, Bai Xiaochun thought about how quickly Shu Baosai had fit into the River-Defying sect as a whole, and how he knew about all the gossip and news. In fact, whenever Bai Xiaochun wanted to know anything, he was completely confident in being able to get an answer from Shu Baosai. Without any further hesitation, he shot through the air toward the mountains of the Spirit Stream Division. As he neared Shu Baosai's Immortals Cave, he saw Shu Baosai standing outside, his eyes sparkling like gems, and his expression one of intense sorrow. Almost immediately, Shu Baosai began to wail, Sect Uncle Bai, I'm going to miss you so much. I heard that you're going to become a hostage in the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect. Who knows when we'll meet again, Sect Uncle Bai. You take care of yourself. Wow, you got the news that quickly? Bai Xiaochun said, surprised. He had just been informed himself, and yet somehow, Shu Baosai already knew. Yeah, that's right, Shu Baosai said proudly. Nobody knows more about what's going on in the River-Defying sect than Shu Baosai. Wherever I go, I find out all the secrets. I have countless ways of ferreting out information. This was actually what Shu Baosai was most proud of, and he couldn't tolerate when people doubted his abilities. But don't worry, Sect Uncle Bai, he continued in a serious tone. I'll continue to make sure everyone knows about all of your stories. All the new recruits in the sect will hear everything about you. Inwardly, he was feeling very pleased. The recent events in which virtually all the female disciples in the sect had become infatuated with Bai Xiaochun had left him very depressed. As far as he was concerned, with Bai Xiaochun around, it would be very difficult to get a Taoist partner of his own. All of the girls he liked turned out to be smitten with Bai Xiaochun, which left him feeling very down. As soon as he'd heard that Bai Xiaochun would be leaving for the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect, his heart had swelled with excitement. Bai Xiaochun was actually very pleased by what he had just heard. Clasping Shu Baosai's shoulder tightly, a look of both sincerity and sorrow appeared on his face as he said, Listen, my brother, I was actually hesitating before. After all, the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect will be an unfamiliar place, and I didn't want to drag any of my sect brothers and sisters into this situation with me. But after what you said just now, I completely understand. Shu Baosai suddenly realized that he hadn't gotten all the information, and that something about the situation was clearly off. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, Bai Xiaochun said, I need a Tao protector who can help me get information in the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect, and that person is you. A tremor ran through Shu Baosai, and his eyes widened. Suddenly, he understood everything, and his face fell. Sect Uncle Bai, my cultivation base is a bit low. Bai Xiaochun waved his hand dismissively. I need someone who can get information, not someone with a high cultivation base. But I'm really clumsy. Don't worry about it. As long as you can root up all the secrets and get all the news about the places we go to, that will be enough. Besides, I'm well acquainted with your brave personality. The blood notice from years ago proved that. Alright, don't bother with any pretense of refusing. I know you'll miss me too much if I leave you behind. Therefore, the matter is settled. Bai Xiaochun laughed heartily, but then he noticed that Xu Baosai's face was a bit ashen, and he appeared to be on the verge of refusing. Therefore, Bai Xiaochun quickly pulled out the command medallion Frigid Sect had given him and waved it in front of Xu Baosai's face. A patriarch's command medallion, Xu Baosai said with a gasp. He was completely and utterly thunderstruck, and unsure of how to react. After a long moment passed, he felt like he was about to cry. He knew that he couldn't refuse even if he wanted to. All of a sudden, he felt a bit sick to the stomach. Bai Xiaochun put his arm around Xu Baosai's shoulder and cleared his throat. Chuckling, he said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Come, little treasure. You know everything about the sect, so help me analyze the situation a bit. Which other dependable disciples do you think I should bring with me?" Xu Baosai appeared to be on the verge of tears. The thought of going to the unfamiliar Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect was a terrifying thing. However, despite how much he didn't wish to go, he didn't have a choice. Based on what Bai Xiaochun had just said, it appeared that they would be able to drag some other people into the situation with them, which helped Xu Baosai focus. Gritting his teeth, he pondered the situation for a moment, and soon thought of Master God Diviner. Xu Baosai and Master God Diviner had developed a bit of a grudge between each other, and Master God Diviner had even given him a nasty look before. Both of them had happened to like the same female disciple at one point, but in the end Master God Diviner won her over. Sadly, Xu Baosai's cultivation base was too low, so he had been forced to accept the situation. However, he never forgot about what had occurred. Therefore, when he realized that he had a chance to drag others into the situation with him, the first person he thought about was Master God Diviner. "Well," he said, "we'll need someone good at divination and fortune-telling. He'll need to have a high cultivation base, too. That way, when danger comes, he can divine the details ahead of time and we can figure out the best way to protect ourselves. If I were going to pick someone, I would definitely pick Master God Diviner from the Bloodstream Division." "You're absolutely right. We definitely need someone who can perform divination." Bai Xiaochun was fully convinced. Grabbing Xu Baosai, he headed toward the Bloodstream Division to find Master God Diviner. To their surprise, when they reached Master God Diviner's Immortals cave, they found him standing outside, his hands clasped behind his back, looking up into the sky. His bags were already packed and lined up next to him, and apparently, he had been waiting for them. "So, you're finally here," he said calmly. He seemed completely cool and collected, almost as if he belonged in a higher world. Looking a bit melancholy, he flicked his sleeve and said, "I long since divined that tribulation was coming my way. It was decreed by fate that I would leave the sect for a period of years, and that the tribulation would come during that time. Considering that someone from the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect came to visit, it was obvious that my tribulation was nigh." With that, he looked over at Bai Xiaochun and Xu Baosai, his countenance completely otherworldly. "It doesn't matter where you're going. I will accompany you. It is my tribulation, and it has been decreed by fate." Xu Baosai couldn't help but gasp at the sight of Master God Diviner, standing there with his robe fluttering in the wind, looking like some sort of transcendent being. The words he had just spoken were enough to shock just about everyone. Bai Xiaochun had a look of complete incredulity on his face as he said, I can't believe you actually divined that we were coming." But then, he walked a few circles around Master God Diviner, who suddenly recalled how terrifying Bai Xiaochun could be, and started to get a bit nervous. "Alright, Master Snort, Bai Xiaochun said, "answer me this. Can you divine where I'm going to hit you in just a moment?" Master God Diviner's face turned pale, and he instantly began to curse in his heart. He had complete and utter confidence that Bai Xiaochun would do just as he had said and launch a blow. Master God Diviner suddenly shrank down, and instead of looking like a transcendent being, he reverted to his normal appearance. In fact, he even looked a bit devious. Smiling, he said, "I was just kidding around with you, Junior Patriarch. Actually, sir, Master Godwind came last night and told me to get ready for you to come, and that I had to do whatever you told me. I was so excited at the prospect of accompanying you, Junior Patriarch, that I couldn't sleep the whole night. Therefore, I decided to just pack my bags and wait for you." Bai Xiaochun laughed heartily and clapped Master God Diviner on the shoulder. From the expression on his face, he clearly seemed very pleased with himself, and also was reveling in how much more intelligent he was than Master God Diviner. As for Master God Diviner, he appeared to be on the verge of crying. Worried that Bai Xiaochun would press the matter, he quickly offered a reminder. Junior Patriarch, Shu Baosai and I won't be enough. We need someone with us who's really good at fighting. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.